Halfway through Game 1, I sent this text, sensing that a team with both Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic would be hard to beat in a tight, back-and-forth game down the stretch. And sure enough, Luka hit them with 5 crucial points in crunch time before Kyrie sealed the deal from the free throw line. Game 2 would be no different, as the Mavericks overcame an 18-point second quarter deficit as Doncic added yet another notch in his belt and told the Wolves fans to simply go home. Let's quickly figure out what the Wolves did to build their big lead in the first half. It started with Cat having to come out of the game early from foul trouble. His first one was a doozy, just a silly foul that I guess was meant to send a message to the Mavs that they weren't screwing around. It was made even worse when seconds later, Conley screws up the coverage on this back screen. He has to see McDaniels is stuck out of bounds and switch this. Instead, Towns rotates properly but gets tangled up with Luka's legs for an obvious foul and has to come out of the game with 2. Who knew that would be a good thing for the Wolves, because Naz Reid, reigning 6th man of the year, has to check in for him. He wasted 0 time as the Mavericks try a zone defense. But Luka has no idea Reid has cut to the corner behind him, and once Naz got a taste of the wide open 3 life, there was no going back. Early in the second, the Wolves run a set that calls for Towns to set a pin down in the lane. These are a little dicey because you have to worry about a 3-second call, but it does get him good position for over 5 seconds before going into his shot. Credit for sticking with the short miss, and then good decision to avoid 2 defenders on top of him to find the wide open Reid, and now he's in big head mode. By the time Derrick Jones Jr. shows us why it's a risk to go underneath ball screens, the Wolves were a scorching 8 for 13 from behind the arc. But let's not forget, the Wolves destroyed the Mavs in Game 1 from three-point land, and yet became only the 6th team out of 52 in the last 4 seasons that had scored 12 or more threes than their opponent, and still lost the game. But this was the moment the whole thing changed. The refs had just called an offensive foul on Kyrie for kicking out on his 3-point shot, and I can definitely see why this was called. But on the next trip down, Conley sees Rudy has the slightest advantage behind Lively, whose hands aren't up to challenge the pass, and yet he slams this one off the backboard. And now it's a foot race to the rim. While Lively isn't necessarily sprinting as fast as he can, he's kinda jogging, and Rudy still doesn't catch up to him, and Luka won't overthrow this lob. This possession is crucial, even though it doesn't seem like it. You're on the verge of ending the game early in a blowout. The Wolves know they don't want a close game with these guys, and you have to get a great shot. I was happy to see Edwards get the ball screen to make something happen, but what exactly is Rudy doing here? Yeah, I don't know, but the green stunt forces the ball out of Ant's hands, and they have to reset, with pinch post action to Conley's strong left hand. I just don't see how the decision to shoot this was made. Lively is directly in front of him, Rudy is rolling and open, and yet he tosses it up into a blocked shot. Then watch McDaniels not understand that he must pick up Lively in transition. Who cares about Derrick Jones behind the 3-point line when there's a 7-footer standing in the restricted area by himself? It gets worse. With all the momentum now in the Mavs' favor, they don't take a timeout. Okay, they're still up 14, but they run a really high pick and roll with Rudy. This does nothing, as Jones can just go underneath. Now there's less than 10 seconds in the shot clock, and this is a pretty good shot in the corner to a guy who had been hot in Game 1. Not sure what Rudy was trying to do here, but keeping it alive isn't a bad thing. But the Wolves end up with 4 players along the baseline, which happens with corner threes. And that means if you don't hit it, you're going to get caught with only one guy back for the beauty of a bounce pass, and now the lead is 12, and more importantly, the momentum is completely gone, the Mavericks have hope, and the second half awaits. From this moment till the end of the game, the Mavs outscored the Wolves 53-38, outshot them 61% to 43%, and nailed 5 more threes. This was some legitimate beef by Anthony Edwards as the refs missed the contact by Jones to the wrist on the dunk attempt, but the other issue is Cat cannot be crashing into the lane like this. He's the safety back on defense, and now it's Luka's turn to get fouled across the wrist on a layup with no call, but he is still able to finish the shot. The double ball screen killed the Wolves in this game, and let's examine why. They set the first with the guard. Conley recognizes the second screen and drops down to take away the short roll. Because McDaniels is chasing around the top, Rudy has to step up and meet Luka or else risk giving up an open three. The Wolves are attempting a delicate dance here. They want Conley to take away the short roll, then have Cat pick Lively up once he gets deeper. But when Luka turns his head towards Green, it scatters the defense, and this great pass gets them an easy bucket. Knowing how important this moment is and out of a timeout, let's see what Minnie wanted to get. Conley sets a rip screen for Towns for a possible post-up, but Edwards doesn't even consider it. Now they're condensing the defense around Rudy's roll, but the pass is a little high, enabling Washington to close out in time to stop the shot. And here's where I had to go around the block for a pack of cigarettes. In other words, we are all living in North Korea. Because in the conference finals, your role players are supposed to shut their mouths and know their roles. And this, sports fans, is not Rudy's role. You might think with an 8-point lead, the Wolves are still in good position, but only if they take really good shots. And this, my friends, won't be a great shot. Edwards could attack Luka in the pick and roll, get something aggressive to the hoop, maybe a foul, and instead, he quick releases a heavily contested 30-footer. Heck, Rudy even got the rebound, so there was hope until he tries to shoot this with his left hand under heavy duress, and it's an ugly miss, made even worse by committing the foul 93 feet from the Mavs basket. Mon Dieu! A little later, I want to give props for the pressure McDaniels is putting on Luka, who was getting tired at this point. But I can't help but think this was an unnecessary gamble for a steal against a professional ball handler, and it gets Luka right into the middle. Watch Edwards. It's his job to split the difference between the two spot-up shooters and simply close out wherever the ball goes. Luka tells him these are not the droids you're looking for, and the no-look pass opens up the wide-open shot for a good shooter, and now it's a 5-point game. The early foul trouble got Cat so out of rhythm that they were forced to bury him on the bench for almost the whole fourth quarter. He couldn't buy a bucket, and then on the way back down, he easily could have switched Conley out of there to avoid the severe size mismatch. But Kyrie gets the ball down there, and Washington scores down low. If you want to use the same 3D graphics that I use to more easily explain the X's and O's, you're in luck. I can get you 10% off the subscription price to Coach Paint Lite. It's an easy-to-use interface that allows all sorts of different graphics that will no doubt help your players better understand the points you're making. Click on the link below for more information and use my code BBALLBREAKDOWN. You'll have 7 days to try it out for free, so check out Coach Paint Lite now and you'll understand why Minnesota wants to pick and pop for a Naz Reid 3. Edwards can't even make the simple pocket pass, and here comes the Mavs. And after the last Kyrie shot, he was feeling in rhythm, I guess, since this one wasn't even a good shot. A teammate still in the backcourt, no one near the paint, 18 seconds on the clock. He's been stationary for several seconds, but we have the phrase YOLO for a reason. With a team as good as the Mavericks, you cannot afford to blink too many times and hope to win the game. I can't fault Conley for passing to Rudy since he was open, and maybe there's a little impeding of progress with the Kyrie hand on Rudy's waist, but I just don't get why they try and feed him as often as they do. But stuff happens, it's how you react which makes the difference. And maybe it's the language barrier because Rudy is correctly trying to tell Edwards to go guard Kyrie. Edwards is way too slow recognizing this, and Irving buries another huge three. Conley makes another mistake. After playing great defense to cut Kyrie off with 4 seconds on the shot clock, he simply invades his airspace way too much and commits the landing space foul. Despite all of the issues we'd seen from Minnie, including benching a starter and frittering away a big lead, they were very resilient, and it had to feel somewhat good when Conley comes around the screen for his right-handed floater that I've never been in love with. Of course, he comes down the next possession, and instead of shooting a lefty finger roll out of the reach of Lively, he tries to shoot the righty floater again and promptly misses. More double ball screen defensive issues. They have McDaniels chase around instead of going under, forcing Rudy to step up higher. And look at the options Luka has. A wide open Jones in the left wing or the lob to Lively at the rim. On the next possession, the key is that McDaniels refuses to be screened off. In this case, there was no need for Rudy to step up like this. Jones makes a mistake rolling parallel to Lively instead of getting immediately wide open on the wing, and this leads to a huge stop by Minnesota after dodging a severe bullet in the wide open Kyrie three-pointer out top. The advantage the Mavs have is that they can run the same double ball screen for Kyrie Irving instead and present a whole set of other problems, like a much faster ball handler getting downhill into the paint. But they get lucky as a 91% free throw shooter misses both. After the first one was long, he adjusted too much and left this one short on the front rim. And this was it. The Wolves had it. Edwards smartly attacks off the dribble, draws the clear foul, and makes the 2 free throws for a 5-point lead and 90 seconds left. But remember my text, if you don't put these guys down early, forget about it. I think this is a mistake to play this far off of Kyrie from 1 pass away, and it's really a mistake to go for the reach around on this drive. Instant scramble for the defense, Anderson should be staying home on Luka. Ant would not have had to rotate out top, and McDaniels wouldn't have gotten so concerned with an open Washington in the right corner, enough so they left Kyrie frickin' Irving all by himself to hit a crucial 3. While this call might feel like it decided the game, I hope that the evidence presented here proves this was just one thing in a long list of subtle mistakes and miscues that can't be overcome against a team like Dallas. I like that McDaniels found the open spot along the baseline when Kyrie gambles from 1 pass away to pressure Edwards. Great early rotation by Luka means they wouldn't have gotten much out of it, but the pass was so off target that McDaniels had to leap and snag it with one hand. This delayed the catch enough so that Kyrie could get there and knock it out of bounds. And when the Mavericks challenge the call, it goes back to them simply because the rule in the NBA states that for an out-of-bounds call specifically, you cannot factor in a foul if you see it in the review. On other challenges, you absolutely can call the foul if it's connected to the play. In the WNBA, the refs would have been allowed to give the ball back to the Wolves because of the clear foul. But here we are, and now the Mavs get the ball back. For the first time all game, the Wolves decide to switch everything, meaning we get an ISO on Rudy with Luka on an island. I really like how they tag team this by first Gobert shading him towards the side to lure Doncic away from the go-ahead 3-pointer, and then Reed stepping up to contest the fadeaway. This all worked perfectly. Remember, the Mavs know Ant won't give it up to Rudy on the short roll, so they can afford to show a hedge longer than normal here. Lively stays close, and let's talk about what Reed does. He could have stayed in the corner, but I suspect he felt like Kyrie was in the passing lane, so he released to the wing at the exact moment Ant was stepping through to pass. Now he's a moving target, Ant fires an absolute fastball, and folks, I just don't think the Wolves are ready for this. Now they're in a tough situation, which is exactly why they needed to stay out of this in the first place. You don't want to give up a game-winning 3, you also don't want to foul and let him tie it. I don't think they had to switch this. The screen was set high enough that McDaniels could have closed back out. If Lively beats you somehow, so be it. Just don't let Luka do it. Instead, he catches Rudy crossing his feet with an awkward step. He can't get close enough to contest this, and the Mavs take the lead on an incredible shot. I mean, give Luka all the credit in the world for hitting this crazy tough one. There wasn't much Rudy could do, which is why they should have done a lot more to have gotten it out of Luka's hands. Had McDaniels doubled, Reed was right there for Lively, Slow-Mo could zone up Washington and Jones, and they would have had a real chance. With all that said, they still had a chance anyway, and I think this was a mistake to help 1 pass away off of Naz Reid of all people, the hottest guy in the gym. They get away with it, however, and now the visiting team has taken the first 2 games of the series. And it's only a question of how many games it will take for the Mavericks to advance to the NBA Finals.